Picture this. You are at a social gathering, a networking event, or maybe just trapped in the break room at your office. Someone walks up to you, coffee in hand, gives a polite smile, and asks the dreaded question, "So, how about this weather we've been having?" Or perhaps it's, "Did you catch the game last night?" Or the classic, "What do you do for a living?" For some people, these questions are a pleasant, easy game of verbal ping pong. But for you? For you, it feels like a physical weight dropping onto your shoulders. Your mind goes blank. Your energy immediately begins to drain out of your body, as if someone just pulled a plug from the bottom of your heel. You force a polite laugh. You give a generic answer, but inside, a tiny voice is screaming, "Please, let this end. Can we please talk about something real?" If this sounds familiar, you are not broken. You are not antisocial. You are not weird or stuck up or rude. You simply belong to a specific psychological category of people who absolutely despise small talk and desperately crave deep conversation. Today, we are going to look under the hood of your brain. We are going to explore why casual chatter physically exhausts you, why depth acts as your psychological fuel, and why the world actually desperately needs people exactly like you. To understand why you hate small talk, we have to start by understanding what small talk actually is from a biological perspective. Evolutionary psychologists compare human small talk to primates grooming each other. When monkeys sit around picking bugs out of each other's fur, they aren't just cleaning each other. They are establishing social bonds. They are saying, "I see you, you see me, we are not going to attack each other." Human small talk is exactly the same thing. When your neighbor asks about the weather, they do not actually care about the barometric pressure. They are doing a safety check. They are sending out a verbal ping. Are we safe? Are we part of the same tribe? Are we friendly? When you respond with, "Yes, looks like rain," you are sending a ping back. Yes, we are safe. We are friendly. For the vast majority of the population, this exchange of pings is pleasant. It releases a tiny hit of dopamine. It feels safe and comforting. But for you, this process feels like absolute torture. Why? It all comes down to how your specific brain is wired to handle stimulation, dopamine, and authenticity. Let's talk about the neuroscience for a second. Many people who hate small talk fall on the introverted side of the spectrum, or they are what psychologists call highly sensitive persons, or HSPs. This does not mean you sit in a dark room crying. It means your nervous system is exceptionally porous. You absorb everything around you. The extroverted brain operates on a dopamine pathway. Dopamine is the reward chemical. Extroverts need a lot of fast, novel external stimulation to get their dopamine flowing. A loud room, a fast-paced conversation jumping from the weather to a TV show to a joke. That rapid-fire exchange gives them a buzz. But your brain likely operates on a completely different pathway. You run on a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is tied to deep thinking, reflection, intense focus, and meaningful connection. When you are engaged in a long, quiet, incredibly deep conversation about philosophy or childhood trauma or the mysteries of the universe, your brain is bathed in acetylcholine. You feel calm. You feel alive. You feel completely in your element. But when you are forced into a rapid-fire environment of small talk, your brain gets overwhelmed. You are being bombarded with external data, facial expressions, tone of voice, background noise, but none of that data has any real meaning. Your brain is a supercomputer designed to process deep, complex algorithms. And small talk is the equivalent of forcing that supercomputer to play a game of tic-tac-toe over and over again. It is incredibly frustrating, and it burns up your mental battery for no reward. This brings us to the concept of the social battery. People often think introverts or deep thinkers have a small social battery, but that is actually a myth. Your social battery is massive. It just drains or charges depending on the quality of the interaction, rather than the quantity. Think of socializing like being in the ocean. Small talk is the shoreline. The water is shallow, barely up to your ankles, but the waves are constantly crashing. The sand is shifting, kids are screaming. It is chaotic, noisy, and it takes a lot of physical effort just to keep your balance in the crashing surf. Spending an hour in the shallows leaves you completely exhausted. But deep conversation? Deep conversation is scuba diving. You swim past the crashing waves, you put on your gear, and you sink beneath the surface. Down there, it is quiet. It is profoundly beautiful. There is weightlessness. You could stay down there for hours and never want to come up. When you are sitting in a quiet corner with one fascinating person talking about their greatest fears or their most wild dreams, you are scuba diving. You aren't draining your battery. You are actually charging it. You walk away from those interactions feeling energized, inspired, and deeply connected to humanity. There is another massive psychological factor at play here: authenticity. People who crave depth usually score very high in a personality trait called openness to experience, and they have a core psychological need for things to be genuine. Small talk, by its very nature, is a performance. It is a socially agreed-upon script of polite lies. How are you? I am fine. How are you? Great, keeping busy. Neither person is actually fine. Neither person actually cares. It is a theatrical play that we all agreed to act in. For someone who values deep authenticity, participating in this play feels like a betrayal of the self. It feels physically uncomfortable to say words that you do not mean, to smile when you are not happy, and to pretend to be interested in the mundane details of a coworker's weekend when your soul is starving for something real. You do not want the socially acceptable version of a person. You want the messy, real, unpolished version. You want to know what keeps them awake at 3 a.m. You want to know what breaks their heart. You want to know what they would do if they had no fear. And when you cannot get to that depth, the surface-level interaction feels like a complete waste of precious time. This creates a painful paradox for you. Because you hate small talk, people often mistake you for a misanthrope. They think you are aloof, arrogant, or that you simply do not like people. But the exact opposite is true. You love people. You are deeply fascinated by human nature. You care profoundly about the human experience. You just hate the artificial barriers that society puts between us. You hate the lobby. You want to be invited straight into the living room of someone's mind. But here is the harsh reality that every deep thinker eventually has to accept. You cannot just walk up to a stranger at a grocery store and ask them about their deepest childhood trauma. Society would collapse if we bypassed the social filters entirely. The human nervous system needs a warm-up period. Remember the monkeys picking bugs? We still need to establish safety before we can expose our vulnerable underbellies. Small talk is the toll booth on the highway to deep conversation. You cannot get to the beautiful deep waters without first wading through the crashing waves of the shoreline. So, how do you survive this? How do you navigate a world obsessed with the superficial when your soul demands depth? The first step is shifting your mindset. Stop looking at small talk as a trap and start looking at it as a bridge. It is merely a tool, a temporary bridge you cross to get to the good stuff. Once you understand that the other person isn't trying to bore you, but is simply trying to establish a safe connection, it becomes easier to tolerate. You can give them the social grace they need to feel comfortable. But more importantly, you can learn how to hijack the small talk. You have the power to steer the ship away from the shallow waters. Instead of playing along with a standard script, you can introduce tiny, gentle pivots that invite the other person to go deeper with you. When someone asks, "How was your weekend?" you don't have to say, "It was good." You can say, "It was quiet. I read a book that completely changed how I think about time." Have you ever read something that shifted your perspective? Suddenly, the weather is gone. The generic script is broken. You have just opened a door. If they ignore the door and go back to talking about the weather, that is okay. You let them be. Not everyone is ready to scuba dive. But you would be shocked at how many people will happily walk through that door. Because here is the great secret of society. You are not the only one who hates small talk. Most people are incredibly bored by surface-level interactions. They are just too afraid to break the script themselves. They are waiting for someone to give them permission to be real. When you ask a slightly deeper question, when you offer a piece of genuine vulnerability, you become a beacon in a foggy room. You give the people around you the immense relief of being able to drop their masks. This is your superpower. In a world of constant noise, in an era of fleeting, artificial, social media-driven connections, your craving for depth is a rare and beautiful gift. You are the person who makes others feel truly seen. When someone finally gets past your polite exterior and sits down with you in the quiet depths of a real conversation, they feel a sense of psychological safety that is almost impossible to find these days. You listen not just to respond, but to understand. You do not judge the messy parts of the human experience because you are actively searching for them. It is perfectly okay if large parties exhaust you. It is okay if networking events make you want to hide in the bathroom. You do not need to collect hundreds of superficial acquaintances to have a rich, meaningful life. You only need a handful of people who are willing to put on the scuba gear and dive into the depths with you. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a loop of polite, meaningless chatter, take a deep breath. Forgive the world for needing the shallows. But never apologize for demanding the deep end. Protect your energy. Cultivate your curiosity. Keep searching for the people who speak your language, the language of authenticity, of raw honesty, and of uncompromising depth. Because while small talk might make the world